Hi, welcome to Venture Matters TV. This series is initiated by KrASIA, a media brand under 36Kr Global, covering innovation news in Asia in various languages like Chinese, English, and Japanese. So we started Venture Matters TV because we wanted to provide insights about Asian investment patterns and cross-border opportunities. So through this TV series, we will invite top VCs active in their fields to share their opinion on global market trends. So today I'm very excited to host Soo Boon, founder and managing partner of iGlobe Partners. Soo Boon, as we all know, is a true pioneer of Singapore's VC landscape, from establishing Vertex's operations in Silicon Valley in 1988 to then founding iGlobe Partners. Soo Boon has almost 30 years of proven experience in nurturing founders and leading successful exits. As Singapore's first female VC, Soo Boon is deeply invested in the issue of women in tech and is a proud advocate of female leadership. Thank you for taking time to join us today, Soo Boon.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Right, so I'm very interested to know, right, because you have all this wealth of experience in VC. Perhaps let's start a bit in how you started your journey. So how did you get into investing in semiconductors when I saw that your background was mainly in math and finance?
Okay, my degree was actually in mathematics. I was a graduate of University of London, King's College. So my mother always believed that her daughters have to be well educated and financially independent.
Right.
Hence, I was sent overseas to be on my own. And I must say that this experience has been a life-changing experience. So being in a foreign country, it forces me to acquire networking skills because I have to network and start talking to people. So, and most of them are professors, students from all over the world. So I realized that networking was essential for me to communicate with the community among them, right? And also to make what I want to talk to them interesting. So I really need to go out and figure out what is interesting to them rather than what I'm interested to tell them, correct? Yep. So I will have to go into subject matters that I'm not familiar with. And this is how I started my networking skill.
I see.
Be that forced environment because it's not like in Singapore, you know everybody, and but the change of environment really forces me to do new things.
Right.
So I began to believe that I could make things happen by working with people and for the greater goods. So this is the first part about my university education that I've acquired. After I graduate, I actually joined Development Bank of Singapore. At that time, it was called Development Bank of Singapore, as a money market dealer in the dealing room. Those are really very pioneering days, right? There are hardly any women in the dealing room. Yeah. So I was thrown in there. They figured out that I did mathematics. I'm very good with numbers. Yeah, actually it's true. I'm very good with numbers. I'm very quick. I was trained to think on my foot and also be very cooperative if you have visited the dealing room. But most of my career, I was trained actually as a credit lending officer. So I went from industries, market, from shipbuilding to transportation to real estate, financial services, and electronic industry. And I actually know many of the characteristic and business model of this industry intimately. Because we were really looking at the global market, although we are a local bank. And then when I went on to head up the international loan department of the bank, concurrently, I'm also in charge of all the bank's 8 overseas branches. So I was very international in the outlook, right? And this experience in DBS, with the range of all the training I had in the credit department, actually set me almost a big leap into the venture capital world. Of course, at that time I didn't know, but that was the kind of background training that I had. So I don't have an MBA, like going to real school for MBA, but the experience I have, I would say that is as valuable as the MBA.
And then I think one of the highlights, at least for me, from reading your experience, right, is that you set up Vertex in Silicon Valley, right? Could you share a bit about how that went and what it was all like?
Yeah, so after working with DBS Bank,
Mm.
one day my husband said that he's being sent by the government. So he works for the Sovereign Fund, GIC, that he has to go overseas to Silicon Valley and work, and he doesn't want to go alone. So he requested that I should go with him at least for a year. Otherwise, he'll be very miserable. So I thought I've been very kind of selfish to build my own career. And I thought myself and I said, I should be like an Asian woman because I was behaving like a Western woman. I can do as well as a man, so I was always, climbing the corporate ladder. At that time, I thought, well, I should really step back and do something for him rather than I'm always, chasing after the ladder. And so I went to my chairman, DBS chairman, who is Hao Yun Chong at that time. So he was the ex-defense minister. So I went to him and said, oh, Mr. Hao, I need 1 year no pay leave. And Mr. Hao said, young lady, you don't march into my room and ask for 1 year no pay leave. When you leave, there are 20 other people who want your position. So I pleaded with him and I said, Mr. Hao, my husband is gone to do his job, which is managing money for the GIC. And therefore, as a spouse, I have to follow him. So I'm on national service. And I got my 1 year no pay leave. So the moment I went to Silicon Valley, I was like, oh shit, this is such a good place, Why have I been sticking around in Singapore? I should really learn something new. So that was really this big discovery. So I was at home, looking after babies, which actually I have no experience, but that was a new experience for me. So I was like home trip, field trip mom, driving kids to school. My daughter was very young at that time. But it was, sometimes you find that you're quite useless staying at home. Because always you're feeling so self-important at work, people want your time. Then my phone stopped ringing, right? Nobody wants me. But then I find new interests that I have to go work with the kids. So the kids doesn't listen to you. In the office, all your staff listen to you, right? So and so, because you're the boss. And, the kids will come back and just say, they are the boss. I was like, okay, how can that be? So then I had to deal with the kids and how to convince them and persuade them to do what I want them to do. And most of the time, they don't do what you want them to do. And I must say, that experience is also a wonderful experience about nurturing, which later on I'll talk about a little bit more about the venture capital, right? And how I think woman has a natural inclination nurturing, kids, nurturing entrepreneur, and we actually can trigger that and use that skill set. Listen to their wants and listen to the needs, right? So in 1987, the next year, so I went back to DBS and asked for 2 more years no pay leave. But eventually, my whole stay in Silicon Valley, I was all the time on no pay leave from the bank.
Right.
And Philip Yu was looking for someone to manage, to be center director for Singapore Technology Group, and also to manage the relationship of Chartered Semiconductor, because then they were doing a big technology transfer with Sequoia Capital. So he was complaining that he couldn't hire a head who is a Singaporean. So the rest of the people don't need to be Singaporean, but the head need to be a Singaporean. And the Singaporean who worked with him before, everybody quit and everybody come back to Singapore. So I was explaining to Mr. Hao, I mean, they're all from the defense industry. And Mr. Hao said, well, I have this woman sitting at home. If you want, you can go persuade her to work for you. And how, Philip came to me and said, oh, Mr. Hao said that you're sitting at home, then maybe you can work for me. I said, no, I'm working for my kids. Said, oh, no, kids, don't worry. They grow by themselves, people. We need trustworthy people to run the business. Then, of course, I was, very happy Sitting at home, sometimes you feel useless, and at times you feel very important. I took the job and went to work for Philip Yeo, and this is how I ended up as Center Director of Singapore Technology, and immediately plunged into the semiconductor industry. And then, of course, I think what's interesting is that I did not realize that later on, that the school that my kids went to were actually many of the VC's kids went there.
Oh,
not knowing, right?
Cool.
So I already know the parents. We met at TA. And so I went and I was like, okay, I saw some of these people. I was like, oh, who are you? And I was like, oh, I'm managing director of Goldman Sachs, San Francisco. I was like, oh, this is Christine's father, right?
Wow.
It's very interesting. So I thought I've been quite blessed with meeting random people, at school, playground. So the kids went to each other's house and play with each other. So we did not meet each other at the office initially, but we were kind of already friends through the children. So please treat your kids well, because this is one way of networking, either through the dog or the kids, Actually, in a very natural way than just through business. Because when you go through the door with business, then it's a different kind of relationship. Yeah, so that was interesting. And then so when I saw what other people are doing in venture capital in Sand Hill Road, I was like, oh, okay, they get good performance. So in 1988, I asked Philip Yeo and said, why don't you give me some money to start a corporate VC fund? I started Vertex in 1988. So the purpose was to invest in fabulous semiconductor company to be future customer of Chartered, because they are their customer, they are fab, right?
Yeah.
Chartered is actually a fab. Yeah. So this is how many of my portfolio company are actually
semiconductors. Understand.
So that I create synergy between the US semiconductor and Chartered. At the same time, my approach was helping them to grow their revenue, and also trying to persuade them to use Chartered as a customer. And then we are also founding customer, and then I also co-invest with the Sand Hill Road VCs.
Wow.
So I use several of the concept of banking on syndication, risk management, and all that into venture capital. So I'm not a true venture capital. I have a lot of advantage. So you can imagine that 30 years ago, I was actually a double minority.
Right.
I'm an Asian woman, and I'm a woman, right? I'm a woman and Asian. So actually it's not easy. So I have to find friends. I have to, be friendly to people. And what I find that I have been very lucky, because Silicon Valley is education community, right? Being Stanford, Berkeley, a lot of people want to share ideas with you. So the concept is very different from Singapore. Your Singapore place is small, right? So everything is a secret. So you only keep your secret among your friends. But because being in education, university, tertiary education community, they want to share their research. They want to share ideas with you.
Right.
So it's the opposite. The whole thing is all about mindset.
Interesting. Do you think the VC mindset in Singapore is open now?
I think they are VC, so they should be open. But I think it's a process, right?
Yeah.
Not the VC, it's more the entrepreneur.
Right.
It's the whole community, I must say. When we talk about something, we really are talking about ecosystem. You cannot be successful if you are successful yourself. It's one whole community.
Understand.
So the thinking, everything must be different. So if you do something, if you're just trying to do something for yourself, you won't be that successful. However, when you start doing for the community, everybody benefit. And then in 1996, I went on to start the CVC London office, and I started investing in smart card technology and internet related, because by then internet come out. So I have actually gone from semiconductor and expanded to smart card. We were investing in GemPlus, where today, you know, you have the credit card. That chip is actually done by smart card. And we were early investor in that, and Singapore Technology did a joint venture with them. So, although I came from financial as a banker, but I was more joint venture kind of. We do a lot of joint venture stuff. So we are quite operational in outlook. And then because of that, I had two very good mentors who actually has been very instrumental in opening up all the network for me while I was in Silicon Valley. And these two, I shall name them as Paul Huang, he's ex-founder of Cadence. He's Taiwanese American guy. So went to US as a poor student, and then later on built very successful business. And he told me actually he wanted to help me. And the former CEO of Lattice Semiconductor, Cyrus Choi, is originally from Hong Kong, and then went to US for his education, and also in the semiconductor space. So they were, you know, really my mentors over the period of time. So they've been pushing me to say, hey, you know, I think you're good in venture capital. Why don't you work for yourself? But I always have been very happy working for other people, right? I never think about working for myself. So I feel that there has come to a phase that, oh yeah, maybe I should just work for myself.
Do your own thing.
So, yeah, do my own stuff. So in late 1999, I started iGlobe, actually in the US. So iGlobe, I did not start in Singapore. So I'm Singaporean. I started in the US. And at that time, I have a Singapore office, and that was my back-end office, which is in the accounting and finance. But majority of my portfolio are actually US. So I'm not very visible in the Singapore VC scene because, you know, most of my portfolio, my exits and all that in the US. So we started actually, we have a very good address called the Great America Parkway in Santa Clara. So we took that address.
Was it expensive?
Huh?
Was it expensive? Your rent?
No, my rent is not expensive. Actually, US rental is cheaper than Singapore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Much cheaper. Yeah, much cheaper, relatively. It's cheaper than Singapore. Yeah, it's that whole community, right? So today, actually, who we are is that we are the leading Asia Pacific cross-border VC. So we cross-border from US, Europe to Singapore. We always use Singapore as a gateway for Southeast Asia and also for Japan. So I must say that today 10 years ago, we have moved our headquarters to Singapore. I'm proud to say that now I'm a Singapore VC. Although I started the first one in the US. So we do 50% of our investment overseas and 50% in Singapore headquarter venture. And we're hoping to be able to benefit some of our startup company.
I see that you have, you know, so much exposure in terms of geographically, right? I wanted to ask, like, what were some of the qualities that saw you through your successes? Whether, you know, regardless of whether it's like from Vertex to DBS or even now at iGlobe, what were some of the timeless qualities that worked for you?
So I think the qualities, that is several things, right? One, as I mentioned, the networking skills I acquire during my university days. That was actually very crucial, because when you want to do the cross-border stuff, you know, first you must know where to find things, right? And most of the time, you are always searching for something, so you need to, your networking must be very strong. Secondly is the analytical training that I received during my credit evaluation days. Right, when you are meeting with a lot of situations, you meet a lot of companies, you acquire the knowledge. And plus, when I was head of international, I was remote from all my 8 overseas branch offices. I work with proposal with my general manager of Tokyo office, from London office, New York or Los Angeles.
Mm.
So how do I make judgment based on remote decision, based on inadequate information?
Right.
Right. I need information, but
Mhm.
to what amount of information do I need to make this decision?
Mm.
So that means I have to make judgment, right?
Yeah.
Business judgment. So a lot of things are moving. So I have to trust what the general manager is telling me. I have to make a judgment as to what is the strength and weakness of this general manager. And I also have to intimately understand the industry in which the company want to apply the loan for.
Right.
So that's why it comes very easy to me when I start to run international operation, because I don't always have people around me.
Yeah.
That means I have to make decisions remotely. I need to find information to cross-check what somebody tell me is true or not true. So it cannot be 100%.
Yeah.
Whether it's 50% or 70%, even the guy is not lying, I still have to make a judgment because it's a business decision, right? So I have to factor what are the risk factor. And that has made me quite comfortable when in venture capital, a lot of things are unknown.
Yeah.
Especially technology, right?
Yeah.
Some of the old people say, you know, you invest in software company, you cannot touch, you cannot feel, you cannot smell, which is true. And that's why a lot of Singapore company want to invest in real estate. Why? Because you can tell your friend, oh, I own this building, right?
Yeah.
I own this hotel, correct? You can touch, you can feel, you can show off, right? But if you tell people, hey, I own Microsoft share, the only thing they can see is the share price now if it's public, right? If it's not public, it's private, then you cannot show off. But people want to show off. They want to show off, right? So that's actually scary for people who are not transitioned to dealing with technology.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the Silicon Valley culture is a unique culture, and of course around the world, many governments want to encourage their people to copy them, right? What is the culture? Can do attitude, never fail, then never afraid to fail, never give up, and of course, most important point about the attitude is that perseverance. So we went back to see our success, our successes, and our failure of portfolio company. So when we start examining the failure of the company, we find that we are quite accurate in predicting the trends of the portfolio company.
Right.
Where it failed, when that particular company failed, it because the entrepreneur gave up. So if they don't give up, they have another day to live.
Yeah.
They will be successful.
Right. I think when we, had a call and we met the previous time, we were talking about a lot of Singapore's homegrown successful entrepreneurs, right? And then some of them don't quite fall into the profile of what we think of as old economy tauges, like old economy bosses, right? So I'm pretty sure over the past few decades, you have, witnessed the rise and falls of some of these successful or they were successful entrepreneurs, right? So what do you think? Could you share with us some success stories and the values that you think are worth learning from?
I want to compare the old economy and the new economy entrepreneur, right? So Singapore, basically, majority is actually still very old economy.
Yeah.
We have not even get into the new economy yet. That's why government, I would say that over the past 15 years have been trying to encourage that, right?
Yep.
So if you look at our grandfather's generation, profile, let's talk about the profile. What are their profile? They are immigrants from China, okay? They are poor, they are hungry, they are not well educated during those days. I mean, those are your grandfather's time, right? They're not well educated. However, they are very hardworking, right? and very motivated. Why? Because they want to seek a better life for himself and his family.
Mm. Yep.
And this is Singapore, right?
Mm.
We are a little bit like America, immigrant society in the old days, right?
Yeah.
We are only 55 years old, right? Singapore
Yeah.
is 55 years old. And what happened to them is that they persevere, and sometimes they make mistakes, but they're always trying to do it themselves.
Mm.
And those who persevered and became successful, I mean, you can see the Hong Leong of the world, you know, I mean, many of them originally came from Carpenter Street, right? The Kwok brothers, the Shangri-La Hotel and all that. Those were the examples, right?
Mm.
The other characteristic about these enterprises, many of them bootstrap. They don't go and do funding, right?
Yeah.
Bootstrap. And they own majority of the company.
True.
And most of the time, they either run by people, lawyer, employee who work for them, or family members, based on trust. It's a trust kind of thing. If you trust me, loyal to me, you work there until for life, and I will take care of you. Right? How about the business model? The business model, these are good businessmen. They will squeeze their costs, right? And they are to profitability, run their revenue year over year, right? For a successful enterprise, they will take years to be successful, 20, 30 years, or over generations, right?
Yep.
3 or 4 generations, because it's still young, right? We are only 55 years old, Singapore. So you can imagine, now probably some of the people of your age were probably in the 3rd generation. So this is the characteristic. So whether they can pass the 3rd generation, we'll see. Now, let's talk about the young generation. When I talk about young generation, then I will say, I will talk about tech-savvy people, right? The likes of Grab founders, Razer, people like Ming Liang, you know, and Forrest, C. Those are the successful one. So there are very few.
Yeah.
So today, if you look at the top 10 richest Singaporean, there are 3 in the tech world. 3 group in the tech world. And the rest is still old economy. And I'm sure in 10 years' time, that landscape is going to change. Right. I can't remember. There's the number 2 person is that Mr. Lee from MyRay. I think he's the one who did the ventilator for the COVID. Right. His was like, I think 17 billion or something. And Forrest, of course, is there.
Yeah.
Can't remember who is the other tech entrepreneur. Anyway.
I know Forrest co-founder Ye Gang is also on the list.
Who?
Forrest Lee's co-founder Ye Gang is also on the list.
Is he on the list of top 10?
Oh, I think so.
Not top 10. He's not top 10. He
really?
probably will be there.
Okay, right. Maybe 11 or 13.
Yeah. Top 10. I know which one is number 10. Yeah. I'll check and give you that number.
No worries.
So I'm talking about tech savvy, right? The profile, they're tech savvy and they're knowledge based. They're well educated. They know exactly their space, right? So which is actually quite different. It's not that easily to duplicate.
I understand.
Right? Today, if I'm in the trading operation in the old economy, or I represent a certain car manufacturer, I'm just a trader. So during those days, or you can be a Mercedes trader. You also can be successful. Then you have trading in Volvo. There's another family.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But in this tech world, when you're up there, you basically dominate the market. This is how impactful that can be.
Understand.
So when you observe their fundraising, their fundraising is crazy.
Yeah.
So from day one, you have the idea, the VC investing in you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And normally the founders own less than 50% of the company.
True.
Right. In the case of the old economy, the founders actually own majority control. He has all the final say.
Yep.
Whereas in the new economy, the founders actually own less than 50%.
Correct.
So the VC or the fund manager actually owns more. And yet the VC is very reliable, has to rely on the services of the entrepreneur because of the knowledge, the domain knowledge of what they are running. It's hard for VC to take over and run it.
Yeah.
Unless you're from that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Another character is the business model. It can scale very fast. And I would say it's explosive. That means within a very short period of time, you look at you look at even less than 10 years or at best 10 years. And they can catch up so fast.
Yeah.
Because all these rich old men, right? The next generation, no, they work very hard. But when they're successful, it's 30 years. But these kids, right, when they're successful, it could be 10 years. And 10 years is very fast already.
Right.
And then it go by the billion. It's not even 10 million or 20 million. It's hundreds of millions. And they are cross-border. And the skill set they have to do as a CEO, they have to be multiracial, multidiscipline. You have to cross-border. And the fact is that because of this digital platform, and that's the reason why it's so powerful. And the people they hire is cross-border.
Yeah.
You don't have to all sit in one room or one place.
I understand.
And that's why the concept of property, it should be hitting the head of the people that, today if you own a lot of property, it doesn't go up and up and up.
Yeah.
Because you can get remote location, cheaper software talent around the world. So it's a question of how do you manage remote team? And those are the skill sets that are very important. And then these organizations, because they are set up and run professionally, transition from CEO and building company at scale become very important. So look at Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the Bill Gates of the world, then they have change of CEO, and then they always continuously to be able to find talent. And this is what, Singapore, we should be striving to look at how do we build this sort of company. However, if you start a company and you think that just because you're a founder of the company, they are the CEO, you want to work there for life, then it will be very difficult to have, world-class company. So the mindset need to change. Correct? I mean, I'm just drawing some parallel for you to think about it.
Right. So as a CEO, I shouldn't aspire to stay in my company for too long?
No. You shouldn't give up.
Right.
You may grow into the job. But then you have to learn a lot of things. Right?
Then,
some people can learn and go into the job. But some people will at some point in time, will hit the level of incompetency.
Right, understand.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, everybody has a talent part, right?
Yeah.
The talent side. So for instance, you could be a very good engineer, excellent engineer, and you can go very deep. But you're not a manager. So you don't want to manage people. And that's why in the US, they have founders, engineer, they just leave you to do your thing because you are still helpful.
Right.
But you're not going to be the boss of this thing, right?
I understand.
And they find that I'd rather be a worker than to tell people what to do and to check their progress and all that. So personality is different. So we should look at what we like to do rather than the ego to say, oh, this year I'm promoted to VP, next year
Right.
I'm promoted to SVP, EVP and all that, right? If the title means nothing,
Right.
is what are you doing that's more important? What is the output?
What is one common pitfall you see for entrepreneurs in general? Just like you were saying, like, you know, they have to persevere. Then that was a quality that, you know, also saw you through your whole career, right?
Yeah.
So what's the opposite? What's a common pitfall that, you know, you observe?
Pitfall, the arrogance.
Arrogance.
Yeah, arrogance. And also, because you're arrogant, you're not listening
Right.
to either your customer, you're insisting that this is your way to do. Because when you're in the business environment, you have to figure out what does your customer want,
right,
other than what you want to give to the customer. And it's dealing with new things, right? And when the market condition is changing, that's very important to get feedback. And not receiving this feedback and not adopting this feedback, it becomes arrogant. So that's why we always said, is this entrepreneur coachable? Coachable doesn't mean that you have to listen to 100% what we said.
Right.
We may give you a suggestion, right? We don't want you to say, hey, you know, yeah, we totally agree with you. And then you just take what we said and you implement it. But then if you don't get the result, we still need to fire you, right?
Right, yeah, correct.
Right. So I think it's being smart about it, to be able to implement. But there are some people you can see they're arrogant. And most of the time, actually, when I meet very successful people, they're actually very humble. Not arrogant at all. But of course, there are some very arrogant. But I think it will pay to be, you know, humble. Because when you're humble, people come to you and they talk to you. And then when they talk to you, you listen. Listen to what they have to say. If it's not applicable to you, I mean, you just don't need to take it, right? It's never time.
I think, you know, just building on this, let's talk about a slightly more difficult topic. Right? So there's something that, you know, appealed to me when you talked about nurturing. Right? So one of the things I've been thinking about is nature versus nurture. Right? Whether it is, you know, new team members, whether it is just my younger nieces and nephews, for example. How do you pick who to nurture?
Oh, that's easy.
Ah.
Couple of criteria.
Uh-huh.
Can they put the company's interest before self? Right? Can they put the staff interest before self? Can they work as a team, right? And are they a good leader? So actually, one of the interesting characteristics I see is that if in school, this person plays game, and if they play team game, actually a lot of employers would want to use them, because they tend to be team player. At least this is the concept of the US. I don't know about Singapore. Because as team player, you need to pass the ball around. You cannot hop onto the ball, right?
Correct.
But of course, if you're a single player, you know, game player, then it's different, right? If you're a golfer, you're a golfer. Like, you don't have to care about other people. It's single performance.
Understand.
Right? And also, just now I talk about whether the entrepreneur is coachable or not coachable. Because when we do investment, we also want to kind of add value, right? In the sense that when we see that there's something we think that commercially is not viable, we suggest to them. And if this guy is too arrogant to receive kind of feedback, so that's why I say arrogant could be a downfall for some entrepreneur, because they're not listening, right? And also, more importantly, whether when they set up a company, do they have a clear vision how this company is going to be? So we always ask about the entrepreneur. So what's your dream? Is your dream to make a lot of money or what? Or the reason is because I want to do this, I want to change the world. And that's important. But if they just want to make money, then they are in the wrong job.
Right. Right.
Because it's hard to make money. Start out, we know the failure rate is very high. You know, they have probably not factored in how difficult it is to be the startup.
Understand. Have there been moments when you decided to give up on someone?
I think once we make a decision, if they pass through our criteria, our money is in there, right? So we back them all the way. But obviously, during the process, should we find that our business viewpoint, direction disagree with each other, we parted way, but we don't have to be angry with them.
Yeah.
We just say, okay, fine, you do your own thing. And after all, it's his company. So we'll still stay as friends. After all, we were a business partner before. It's just that we probably don't want to waste too much of our time.
Understand.
If you give them advice, they don't want to listen to your advice, then you don't waste time, right? Or you try to use other ways to see whether other people can persuade them. Or maybe we are wrong. Then we try to counter check with other board members. And if they think the same way, normally it doesn't have good outcome for them.
Understand.
Because we are business people, and most of the startup people, they are technologists. They're not really business people, right? They've never done it before. Unless they're a serial entrepreneur, they know exactly what they do. Then okay, just make the money for us. You don't have to say too much.
Right, understand. So when you started iGlobe, right, what were the reasons behind you setting the culture of partnership built on trust?
First of all, when I pitched to my limited partner, I asked them to trust me. So you think it's actually not an easy job, right?
Yeah.
You're telling the guy or the lady to say, trust me, so the money from his pocket is going to be the money in my pocket.
Yeah.
I'm going to make money for you, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we need track records and all that. So first, we must give people the comfort that we really take care, preservation of capital. Forget about trying to make money first. Preservation of capital, our approach. So people can see it. So the trust, we also have to build trust with our entrepreneur. First, with our staff. Why? Because once we get the money, our staff is the one who has to deliver the goods. So if we don't have good staff that we can trust, that because our staff fly all over the world, right? And we are in the money world, so there's a lot of temptation of taking money for yourself rather than other people, right? So that's why it's also very important for us to pick staff who are honest. Otherwise, if somebody come and say, oh, this guy, I give him some benefit, and then that's why, there's always complaint. You know how in the banking world, the BC world, in the banking world, there's always bribery, there's this and other. I came from banking world, I know, right? So we don't want to do that, because that is dangerous, because all this money thing is going to color your view as to how you do your investment. So we must do the right thing, that we must take money out of the way.
Understand.
That means we must tell our staff what is our expectation on integrity, on how you deal with people. Right? So that is very important. And also, we must build trust with an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
we mustn't have suspect the entrepreneur. So we actually pre-screen them, because it is very important, the character of the person. We are saying that whether you make money for us or whatever, but don't lie to us. I always tell my entrepreneur, if you have unexpectedly low revenue, don't hide from us. Tell us early, and then let's solve the problem together and see how we can help. Sometimes when you have a team of people coming together, we can solve the problem. It's all about problem solving.
I understand.
It's not trying to solve problem yourself.
I
So
understand.
that's why we want them to trust us that when you have trouble, we will try to help you. Right? So building trust among the community is very important.
Interesting. Let's talk a bit about iGlobe's successes so far. What do you think are the 3 biggest successes with iGlobe?
Some of the companies, the people may not know because many of these are overseas company. One, of course, many of them know is Unity. Unity is, software, 3D game engine.
I'm a fan.
Number. You play the game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So most of the younger people know. I can tell you, my limited partner, many of them doesn't know.
Oh.
They don't know because they spend all their time making money, right? But their kids know it. So now I was told the parents are very happy because the kids realize that the parents are investing with a venture fund that appreciate Unity,
right.
and the father, have a portfolio of Unity.
Right.
Then some of the LPs tell us, now I have the respect of my kids. Now my kids are talking to me because I say, oh, that's good. That's called, improving the networking effect of the. And actually, we also try to mentor the next generation as well. How to build companies as well. Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
Unity is one case where we are quite fortunate to be involved with them. And then in the case another company which is actually interesting, but this company is like really long time company. It was a fund that started 20 years ago, but I invested in them in 2003. It's a semiconductor company.
Okay.
2003. Right.
Okay.
So it has its headquarters in Shanghai. They also have US office. They are global operation. They run global operation. And then when I distribute the fund, it has not gone for IPO. The fund already closed down, didn't go for IPO. So we arranged for some Chinese people to buy over the stake because it's a Chinese company. We turned it to a Chinese company. It took a long time. Turned it to a Chinese company. Actually, on the 18th August, it went for IPO.
Oh.
Yeah, after
nice.
17 years. After 17 years. But in the meantime, I went in and bought shares. So instead of, selling shares like many of the other people, I actually bought shares because I believe in the vision of the entrepreneur. So I was with the founding team.
Wow.
I back on it because I'm an investor, right? And
right.
I think their vision take a longer time to execute, but it's such a big market.
Right.
At IPO on the 18th August, they were priced at 2.6 billion. It's like more than 30 times return of my original capital, but 17 years, right?
Wow.
If you are betting on the right horse, but it takes a longer time.
Right.
You need to have the patience, you need to have perseverance.
Yeah, 17 years of patience.
No, why not?
Yeah,
why
very long.
Use yourself. Give
very
it
long.
to your child. Give it to your grandkids. Investment are for generations. Long gone are the days where you pick up your telephone and call your broker, right?
Yeah.
And in between, you're a day trader. So people need to be educated about new form of investment. Another one is shorter. I have not yet exited. It's a company called Hippo Analytics. It's a US company. So this is started by a Jewish guy in the US. He's a serial entrepreneur. So I believe in what he's doing. So he's doing insurance. So he's trying to disrupt the insurtech business.
Right.
So I invested in his Series A in 4 years. Now it's priced at 1.5 billion. He just closed the round at 1.5 billion.
Wow.
Glad to say I'm involved with him. Sad to say I have not added much value. But I've been quite lucky because, you know, I was introduced to him and he wanted some help. I did help somewhat to introduce him some early customer,
Right.
US early customer. So we'll see. But I think we're quite happy that, you know, friends kind of introduce us deals, and I'm sure at some point in time, if he want to come to Asia, we'll be there for him.
What is your secret sauce to all these successful deal sourcing?
I think I still come back. Essentially, is the networking that I built over the years, right? The networking in the community over the last couple of years. Because when you start working with people, you start accumulating good friends, people that you can trust. And because we have good reputation of being trusted by people, so we like to think that we are investor of choice. That means we don't always say, hey, you know, we can do a lot of things for you, but we can only do some of the things for you. But normally at the critical period, when the entrepreneur is down, a lot of people will run away. Right? But we will look at situation. So if we find that the entrepreneur deserving our help during that critical time, we will stay. But we think that if we told you before, you should not be doing this, and then you fail, then of course we cannot be helping you.
I want to move on to the last part of our conversation. So Soo Boon, you have been an advocate for women in technology all these years, right? I personally believe that, you know, men are our allies, not so much of our enemies, right? Whether it's about empowerment or diversity. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. That's the reason. Actually, about 11 years ago, so 2009, I decided that I want to do something for women and something for tech. So what should be the platform I should, you know, associate myself with? So I decided to be one of the council member of the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce. Because the Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce, as you know, is a very prestigious place where many of the old rich actually, are there. They have good reputation. They are old-fashioned. So I thought, well, I should go there and change mindset, or help to change mindset.
Right.
When I joined in 2009 as a council member, there are 36 council members of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce. And these are all the very famous people, leading people, and many of them were actually my customer. They were my customer in DBS Bank. Or their father were my customer.
Right.
And they themselves, you know, maybe were my customer. So because I left for US for a long time, but I thought that is a way that I can, you know, link back technology with the old economy. So anyway, I went in and I was chairing the career woman group. So I was the chairwoman there. For 10 years, I was a chairwoman there.
Wow.
So I decided that, as I mentioned earlier, I feel that most women should be financially independent. And because I was chairing the career woman group, so they are not the businessmen, they are the career women. So they also can be chamber members. And also there are many of them are second generation daughters of, you know, the family businesses and all that. So I was, you know, kind of with them and organizing them. It's more education community. So I organized 智德美群。
智德美群。
智慧的智 right?
Intelligence, wisdom.
Intelligence, wisdom, right? Business wisdom. So we organize activity for outside speaker, but mainly women speaker.
Right.
To teach them about various kind of things. Chin because networking. So among women, you know, we need to have networking. We can learn from each other, right?
Right.
美 is 美德 that means it's not really about beauty. It's also about how you carry yourself, you know,
Virtuous.
virtuous, yeah.
Mm.
And then third is actually our CSR. So actually we
Mm.
launched a program with SCORE, and we are trying to help women who went to jail, and after the jail terms, how do they actually integrate into society? That
Mm.
was quite a fruitful. It is a very difficult project,
Mhm.
but you know our ladies all very good. I mean we launched a lot of activities, and I also started the International Women Day event,
Mm.
三八妇女节. So
Mm.
I also network and organize women from China, women from Indonesia, and all that, just
Mm.
about their experience, how they were successful, but came from very difficult background. So it's
Yep.
all about sharing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you know, as I said in the chamber, there were like 34 other men,
Mm.
council member.
Yeah.
So I tried to influence them, and most of the time I was like, okay, do you have daughters? You know, some of them was like, no, I have only son. And the others were very nice, you know, they're our daughters, you know, can my daughter join your committee? You know, I cannot communicate with my daughter.
Mm.
Then we actually try to work that, because you know in generations sometimes you can't even talk to your kids, right?
Yeah.
And then we are the aunties, we can help to close the gap.
Facilitate.
And then
Understand.
I also try to inject into the technology,
Mm.
and I was also sitting on the technology committee, the
Mm.
chamber, so I'm also trying to bring in and you know talks and try to see what are the technology that can help the whole economy to be more efficient.
Understand.
Right? That's the use of technology is very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's going to take years, but I think the younger next generation pretty savvy.
Mm.
So and they are also welcoming you know ladies
Mm-hmm.
into the decision making process.
Mm.
So in my venture investment portfolio, a couple of women CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had just one 2 years ago, went for IPO in Nasdaq, a
Wow.
company called Twist Bioscience. All right,
Mm.
it's a French American woman.
Mm.
Very well. I think now market cap close to 3 billion now.
Nice.
Right. So there's a lot of and also in Singapore, we in our recruitment, if the CEO and key managers are men,
Mm.
we try to see whether we can influence and get some experienced hand woman
Mm-hmm.
there as well.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think this has to be a conscious decision.
Right.
If it's just randomly, then it's always easy to hire another man.
I have one last question. So what do
Okay.
you think the ecosystem as a whole need to do in order for us to get more women into tech and investments?
I think um, so what you're asking is what can other people do to
Mm.
help the woman going in, right?
Mm. Correct.
I want to say
Consciously.
something about woman.
Sure.
The woman must be willing to go in.
Right.
So I can bring the horse to the
To the
water,
water.
but you don't want to drink, I cannot help you, right?
Understand.
But I would say that this has to come, what ecosystem can help is the government must implement early childhood education
Mm.
for girls and boys, coding classes, even way back in school.
Mm.
And parents should not just give their daughters toys like, you know, all these baby,
Barbie.
but Barbie girls, you know,
Mm.
but give them Lego.
Mm.
So if you train them the same way, they will be okay.
Mm.
So I think what is lacking is career guidance.
Mm.
This is a part that not many people, schools doesn't pay attention.
Right.
Parents also unaware
Mm.
and they are inadequate. Today's education is pretty scary because I can see that in the future of works is a lot of job will not be available today. So if you train our kids for what they are today, it's not going to happen. They'll be useless, you know.
I
So you
understand.
need to give them broad-based education, anytime, anywhere they can pick up. So you need to train that kind of mindset. It's very important.
Understand.
So I think more importantly is that we have to go and encourage the lady. They need to engage. So it's not what government can do for them or what the rest of us can do for them. We cannot do anything for them if they don't. Of course, I got this crazy idea and said, oh, why doesn't the government give them special tax incentive? Right? Because we used to have the scheme, I don't know whether it existed now, that the woman, if you deliver your babies before the age of 28, then you get special tax exemption. You're too young, huh? Special tax exemption for like next 5 years or something like that. So this, maybe you give them the incentive, they will start thinking about, oh, how do I take advantage of this tax system?
Right.
Very typical Singaporean.
Right, yeah, correct. KrASIA.
KrASIA, yeah.
Understand. Interesting. I guess we all just need to consciously challenge a lot of the stereotypes, right? Whether it's from upbringing to even now at the workplace, making a conscious decision and effort, right, to include the women and to consider them for roles that we perhaps previously thought were better for men, right?
No, I think what we should do is, you know, we should make them, they should get ready. They should show this as their interest. Not, you see, our education today, we just study this because no, the exam will cover this, right? We just say, what are you interested, you know? And you give them opportunity, explore and give them opportunity.
Right.
Because many of them will just put themselves in a box. Oh, I'm this, you know, I'm accountant, therefore I just deal with this matter. Right. Other matter, I don't care, nothing to do with me, right? That make our view very narrow. But if our education can train them to have interest in subject matter, right? Can be anything. You don't have to be good. You just need to know it. And then from there you explore, and then you find what is it that you're passionate about.
Understand.
In your study, what are you passionate about? Right? It may not be study, it could be art. Then very early you go into streaming that okay, maybe you want to be a singer. A singer is good, you know. Sun Yanzi is independently she is an independent one, you know, with few people she can build an empire, right?
Yeah.
So this artist is also a real business. A lot of people don't think about it, right? The revenue is a lot, right? Media, and these are good because these are something very different. Entertainment is good, but of course it's hard to be successful, right? Hard to be. You look at the Korean pop actor, you know, but of course it's different kind of industry. It's not for everybody.
So follow your passions and strength.
Follow your passion. I think that's most important.
Thanks, Soo Boon. We are out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and insights. And I hope everyone found today's session valuable. Our next episode will be on 10 September with Shouting from Angel Central. So until then, take care. Thanks, Soo Boon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.